Imagine this. I'm just a regular girl, chilling at my desk, when my boss calls me into a secret room after hours. One night of tea and talk turns into a wild twist I never saw coming. Suddenly, I'm staring at two pink lines and a future I didn't plan. But wait, it gets crazier. Months later, I'm building a new life with my baby girl, thinking it's all behind me. Until a mysterious text lights up my phone and boom, everything's on the line again. Stick around to find out what happens. Hey, before we jump into this tale, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and hit that subscribe button. Ready? Let's roll. I'm Abby, 24, and I never thought a regular Friday at the office would flip my life upside down. It was just past 5:30 p.m., and I was sitting at my reception desk in this little design studio in downtown Chicago. The place was buzzing all day. Phones ringing, designers arguing over fonts, the usual chaos. My desk was a disaster zone. Sticky notes plastered everywhere, a stack of empty latte cups, and my laptop screen glowing with a dozen unanswered emails. I was already mentally checked out, dreaming about kicking off my sneakers, ordering a pepperoni pizza, and binge-watching some trashy reality show on my couch. That's my kind of night. Simple, cozy, no drama. The office was clearing out fast. I waved goodbye to Jen, our social media girl, as she bolted for the elevator, and Mike, the graphic guy, gave me a goofy salute on his way out. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound left, and I was about to shut down my computer when James, my boss, popped his head out of his office. He's 42, tall, with a sprinkle of gray in his hair, and this sharp way of carrying himself, like he knows exactly what he's doing, always in crisp button-ups, too. "Abby, can you stick around for a bit?" he said, his voice steady but with this little edge I couldn't quite place. "I need your help with something." I froze mid-click. Stay late? My pizza dreams flashed before my eyes. But James had always been cool with me. Never barked orders, always said thanks. So I shrugged it off. "Sure, no problem," I said, forcing a grin. I figured he needed me to sort some client files or fix a printer jam. Boring stuff. The glass doors swung shut behind the last coworker, and it was just me, the flickering lights, and that low hum. James stepped out again, loosening his tie just a smidge. "Come with me," he said, nodding toward this random door at the back of his office. I'd seen it before, always locked. Probably a storage closet for old sketch pads or something. My sneakers squeaked on the shiny floor as I followed him, and my stomach did this tiny flip. Why not just use my desk like usual? He turned the key, pushed the door open, and I stepped inside. Not a closet. It was this small, fancy room. Think leather couch, a sleek wooden table, and soft amber lights that made everything feel warm and hush-hush. A teapot sat steaming on the table next to two mugs, already poured. My heart kicked up a notch. This wasn't about work. I'm not clueless. I could feel the vibe shift, like the air got thicker. James shut the door behind us, and the click of the latch sounded way louder than it should have. He turned to me, his eyes locking on mine, softer than I'd ever seen them. "You're not just another employee, Abby," he said, stepping closer. "I've noticed you for a while." I stood there, my brain scrambling. Part of me wanted to bolt, sprint back to my safe, boring routine of pizza and TV. But another part, louder and pushier, was hooked. Flattered, even. James was my boss, sure, but he was also this confident guy who could charm anyone. And here he was, zeroing in on me like I mattered. My cheeks burned. "Thanks," I mumbled, barely audible. He handed me a mug of tea. Herbal, smelled like chamomile, and my shaky hands wrapped around it. "Relax," he said, his voice smooth as he sat on the couch, patting the spot next to him. "No boss, no employee tonight, just us." I took a sip, the warmth spreading through me, and sat down. My mind was yelling, "What are you doing, Abby?" But my body wasn't moving. We started talking. Small stuff at first, like how I ended up in Chicago after community college, chasing a job that wouldn't bore me to death. He listened, nodding, then leaned in. "You've got something special," he said. "Most people here just clock in and out. You've got spark." I laughed, nervous, brushing my hair back. "Spark?" I just answer phones and dodge paper cuts. He grinned, and for a second, I felt like I was in some rom-com, not my real life. We kept chatting, the tea mugs emptying, and I started to loosen up. He asked about my dreams. Did I want more than this desk job? I admitted I'd always wanted to travel, maybe see the West Coast, but I never had the cash or the guts to go for it. You should, he said, dead serious. Life's too short to sit still. It hit me funny. He was right, but coming from him, it felt bigger, like a nudge I didn't expect. Then it happened. He set his mug down, leaned closer, and I didn't pull back. My heart was hammering, but I stayed put. Was this a mistake? Maybe. Did I care right then? Nope. The room felt smaller, the lights dimmer, and I could smell his cologne. Something woodsy and expensive. I kept thinking, this is nuts, Abby. Walk away. But I didn't. I couldn't. That moment sitting there with him was the edge of something wild, and I was about to jump. Looking back, I wonder what I was chasing. Was it the thrill, the attention? Maybe both. I could have said no, grabbed my bag, and headed home to my couch like nothing happened. But I didn't. And that choice, staying when I could have left, cracked my world wide open. It's funny how 1 second can shift everything. I didn't know it then, but that night wasn't just about tea and talk. It was the start of a ride I wasn't ready for, one that'd test me, stretch me, and make me figure out who I really am. Life's like that, I guess. One little yes can send you spinning into something you never saw coming. We were on that leather couch in his secret office room, the chamomile tea long gone cold, and he'd just told me life's too short to sit still. Then he leaned in, his eyes locked on mine, and kissed me. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to break out. I could have pushed him away. Should have, maybe. But I didn't. It was like a movie scene I didn't audition for, and I kissed him back. The room felt electric, buzzing with this crazy mix of nerves and excitement. We kept talking, laughing, like the kiss hadn't just flipped the script. He asked about my favorite road trip. Told him about this one time I drove to Lake Michigan with my high school buddies, blasting music and eating gas station snacks. He grinned, said he'd done the same back in the day, just him and a beat-up Chevy. The air between us got lighter, but my pulse wouldn't slow down. Then he kissed me again, and this time, I didn't hesitate. It wasn't some big, planned thing. 1 second we're swapping stories, the next we're sitting close, the couch shifting under us. It felt wild, like I ditched the rulebook and jumped off a cliff. No regrets, just this rush I couldn't shake. Hours later, I'm back at my desk the next morning, pretending nothing's changed. I'm answering phones. Good morning, Studio 312, how can I help you? But my head's still in that room. James walks by, his tie back in place, and throws me this quick, easy smile. My stomach flips. I nod back, playing it cool, but inside I'm a mess. What was that? A one-off? A mistake? I don't know, but I can't stop replaying it. The way he looked at me. The way I felt alive for once, not just a receptionist killing time. He'd said, "You've got spark, Abby." And it stuck with me. Spark. Me? I'd always figured I was just coasting. Paying bills, scrolling TikTok, waiting for something to happen. But that night, I felt it. Like maybe I could be more than the girl behind the desk. James saw something in me. And yeah, it fed my ego a little. Okay, a lot. I caught myself smiling at my screen, doodling on a sticky note while some client rambled about a logo. Did I cross a line? Sure. Did I care right then? Not really. We didn't talk about it after. Not that day, anyway. The office hummed along like always. Designers arguing, coffee machine gurgling, deadlines looming. But every time James walked past, our eyes would catch, and that spark would flare up again. It was our little secret, tucked away in that dim room. I started wondering what he was thinking. Did he feel the same rush? Was he just messing around? I didn't ask. I wasn't ready for the answer. Later that week, he called me into his office. Normal stuff, or so I thought. "Hey, Abby, can you pull the client list for Monday?" he said, all business. I nodded, grabbing my notepad, but as I turned to leave, he added, "You okay?" His voice dropped, softer, like he meant more than just work. I froze, then shrugged. "Yeah, I'm good. You?" He smirked, just a flicker. "Better than good." My face went hot and I bolted out of there, heart racing again. Better than good? What did that even mean? I kept replaying that night in my head, dissecting every word, every look. It wasn't just fun, it was dangerous, addictive. I'd always played it safe. Grew up in a small Illinois town, moved to Chicago for a steady gig, never rocked the boat. But this? This was me tossing the oars and letting the current take me. I liked it. Too much, maybe. I started wondering, who am I when I'm not just following the rules? That question buzzed in my brain, loud and annoying, but I didn't have an answer yet. Looking back, I see it clear as day. That night wasn't just a random hookup. It was a door cracking open, showing me a side of myself I didn't know was there. I could have walked away, kept my life simple, but I didn't. And here's the kicker. I don't think I'd change it. It's like James said, life's too short. But was I chasing the thrill or something real? I couldn't tell. All I knew was, when I got home that next night, flopped on my couch with my pizza, I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the shift. Something had started, and there was no hitting pause. I tried talking myself down. "Abby, chill. It's not that deep," I muttered, biting into a slice. But it was. I'd stepped into something messy and huge, and I wasn't sure where it'd land me. Did I want more of James, or just more of that feeling? The spark. The rush. I tossed the pizza box aside and grabbed my phone, scrolling through old pics. Me at the lake, me at graduation, me before all this. I looked happy but tame. Now? Now I felt awake. Scared, yeah, but awake. So yeah, that's where I was. Back to my routine, but not really. James and I didn't hash it out, didn't draw lines. We just kept going, him with his sly smiles, me with my racing pulse. It was like we'd lit a match and were waiting to see what caught fire. And me? I was along for the ride, figuring it out as I went, wondering what happens when you stop playing it safe and start saying yes to the unknown. I woke up one Saturday with my head spinning and a stomach that wouldn't quit churning. At first, I blamed the leftover tacos I'd scarfed down the night before. Greasy takeout's a gamble, right? But by Monday, I could barely sip my morning coffee without gagging. Something was off. I dragged myself to work, plastering on a smile while answering calls, but my gut kept twisting. Then it hit me like a truck. I hadn't felt this weird since... Wait. No way. I grabbed my phone, checked the calendar, and my heart sank. I was late. Like, late. That night, I bolted to the corner drugstore, hood up, praying I wouldn't bump into anyone I knew. I snagged a pregnancy test, paid cash, and practically sprinted home. Sitting on my bathroom floor, I stared at that little stick, waiting. 2 pink lines popped up, clear as day. Pregnant. I was pregnant. My hands shook, and I just sat there, the cold tile biting into my legs, thinking, this can't be real. But it was. I was 24, barely keeping my life together. And now this? I wanted to scream, cry, laugh, something, but all I did was stare. I knew it was James's. That night was the only time I'd thrown caution out the window. My mind raced. How did this happen? Well, I knew how, but why me? Why now? I couldn't tell anyone yet, not my roommate, not my mom. How do you even start that call? "Hey, Mom, guess what? Your little girl's knocked up by her boss." Nope. I shoved the test in a drawer and tried to sleep, but my brain wouldn't shut off. I had to tell him. No dodging it. Next day at the studio, I waited till everyone clocked out. My palms were sweaty as I knocked on James's door. He looked up from his laptop, surprised. "Abby, you good?" I took a deep breath and blurted, "I'm pregnant. It's yours." His face went blank for a second. Then he leaned back, rubbing his jaw. I braced for the worst, yelling, denial, anything. But he stood, walked over, and put his hands on my shoulders. "Okay," he said, calm as ever. We'll figure this out. You should keep it. I blinked. Keep it? I hadn't even processed what I wanted, and here he was, calling the shots. What do you mean, keep it? I asked, my voice shaky. He smiled, tight, not warm, and said, It's ours, Abby. I'll take care of you both. It sounded nice, but it didn't sit right, like he'd already decided my life for me. I mumbled something like, I need to think, and stumbled out, my head a mess. He wasn't mad, wasn't running, but I didn't feel relieved. I felt stuck, like I'd tripped into a trap I didn't see coming. The next few days were a blur. I'd catch James watching me at work, his eyes softer but distant. He'd slip me a, how you feeling, when no one was around, and I'd nod, faking it. My body was changing fast. My jeans got tight, and I was wiped out by noon. I'd sneak naps in the break room, praying no one noticed. But my mind wouldn't quit spinning. What did I want? A baby? With James? He was 42, had his life figured out. Nice car, fancy condo, the works. Me? I was still eating cereal for dinner half the time. I started Googling stuff late at night. Baby costs, daycare, apartments. It was overwhelming. A crib's what, $200? Diapers? Hundreds a month. I could barely afford my rent. James kept saying he'd help, even slid me some cash one day. For whatever you need, he said. But it didn't fix the panic. I wasn't ready to be a mom, was I? I'd always pictured that later. 30s maybe, with a partner, a plan. Not now, not like this. One night, I broke. I called my best friend Tara and spilled it all. The test, James, the mess. She showed up with a pint of Rocky Road ice cream and hugged me tight. Abby, this is nuts, she said, eyes wide. What do you want? I shrugged, digging into the ice cream. I don't know, he's all in, but it's like his call, not mine. Tara nodded. Look, you've got options. Keep it, don't. Whatever you pick, I've got your back. That hit me hard. For the first time, I didn't feel so alone. I started weighing it out. Option 1, keep the baby. James helps, maybe it works, but I'd be tied to him, his rules, his world. Option 2, don't keep it. Life stays mine, simpler, but I'd wonder, what if forever? I'd catch myself rubbing my stomach, not even showing yet, and think, there's something in there. My something. It freaked me out, but it also pulled at me. Was I crazy to consider this? Maybe. But walking away didn't feel right either. James kept checking in, all smooth and steady. You need anything? He'd ask, like it was no big deal. I'd say, I'm fine. But I wasn't. I was mad he acted so chill while I was drowning. Did he get how huge this was for me? I wanted to yell, this isn't just your project to fix. But I didn't. I just smiled and kept going, 'cause that's what I do, push through. Still, I knew one thing. Whatever I chose, it had to be my call, not his. That night with him sparked something wild, sure, but this? This was bigger, and I had to figure it out fast. My belly started rounding out, impossible to hide under baggy sweaters anymore. At the studio, people noticed. Whispers followed me to the coffee machine, and I caught side eyes from the design team. James saw it too. One afternoon, he pulled me aside, his voice low. Abby, maybe take some time off. Paid, of course. I'll handle everything. It sounded sweet, but it stung. Like he wanted me out of sight, away from his perfect little world. I nodded, mumbled a thanks, and left his office, my chest tight. That was it. I was done pretending. I quit the next day, packed up my sticky notes and latte cups, handed in my keycard, and walked out of Studio 312 for good. Too many memories, too many stares. I needed a fresh start. I found a tiny apartment an hour outside Chicago, in a sleepy suburb with tree-lined streets and a slower pace. My savings were thin, but I landed a gig at a cozy bookshop, dusty shelves, warm lighting, the smell of paper. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. James kept his word, sending cash now and then, but I didn't lean on it. I was doing this my way. My body kept changing. My jeans were history, and my feet swelled like balloons. Some nights I'd sit on my couch, rubbing my belly, feeling little flutters inside. It was real now, this kid growing in me. I'd talk to Tara over the phone, spilling my fears. What if I suck at this, Tara? I can't even keep a plant alive. She'd laugh. You'll figure it out, Abby. You always do. Her faith in me kept me going when I wanted to curl up and quit. James called sometimes, checking in. How's my girl doing? He'd ask, all smooth and casual. I'd bite my tongue, your girl? And say, fine, thanks. But I saw it clearer every day. He wasn't leaving his life for me. He'd help, sure, but I'd be the one up at 2 a.m. with a crying baby, figuring it out solo. That hit hard. I didn't want his handouts or his half-in, half-out vibe. One night I called him back, my voice steady for once. I'm keeping the baby, James. But I'm doing it for me, not you. I'll handle it. He paused, then said, Okay, Abby. I'm here if you need me. I hung up, and for the first time in months, I breathed easy. I got to work. Tara came over, and we painted the nursery, a soft yellow that glowed in the sunlight. I saved every penny from the bookshop, stacking tips from chatty customers who loved my book recs. My back ached, my ankles puffed up, and some days I'd cry in the shower, scared out of my mind. But I kept pushing. 9 months after that night with James, I was in a hospital bed, sweating and gripping the rails until I heard her cry. My daughter Emma, tiny, with big eyes and a wail that cracked my heart open. I named her after my grandma, the toughest lady I ever knew. Holding her, I felt this rush, love, terror, pride, all at once. Life with Emma wasn't easy. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, and me fumbling through it all. But her giggles? Pure gold. When she'd grab my finger with her little hand, I'd melt. James sent money sometimes, but I built this life. Hours without counting on him. The bookshop became my sanctuary. I'd bring Emma in her stroller, and the regulars would coo over her while I shelved novels. I was learning step by step what it meant to be her mom. I'd look at her and think, this started with one crazy night, and now you're my everything. Looking back, that moment James asked me to stay late wasn't just a detour. It was the start of a whole new road. It tested me, broke me down, and built me back stronger. I used to wonder, what if I'd said no? Would I still be at that desk, dreaming of something bigger? Maybe. But then Emma's laugh pulls me back, and I know I wouldn't trade this. She's my spark now, brighter than anything I felt that night. I wasn't ready to be a mom, too young, too clueless. But love's funny like that. It shapes you, even when you're scared stiff. Months rolled on, and I settled into our little life. Me and Emma against the world. I'd tell her stories at bedtime, made up tales about brave girls chasing dreams, hoping she'd grow up bold. The bookshop owner, Mrs. Carter, saw me hustling and offered me more hours. You've got grit, Abby, she said. Not everyone does. It felt good. Someone seeing me, not just the girl who got in over her head. I started saving for a car, dreaming of road trips with Emma, showing her the lakes and mountains I'd always wanted to see. Then, one crisp fall day, I'm stacking books when the bell jingles. I look up, and there's James, standing there in his fancy coat, holding a teddy bear. My stomach drops. Hey, Abby, he says, smiling like nothing's changed. Thought I'd see how you're doing. I freeze, Emma babbling in her stroller behind me. Before I can answer, Mrs. Carter steps in, sharp as a tack. Stores for customers, sir. You buying or just browsing? James blinks, caught off guard, and I almost laugh. He stammers, just wanted to. But then Emma lets out a loud squeal and he turns. His eyes lock on her, and his face shifts, shock, then something softer. He steps closer, but I scoop her up fast. We're good, James, I say, firm. Really good. He nods, sets the bear on the counter, and walks out. I exhale, hugging Emma tight, thinking that's the end of it. Closure, right? Wrong. That night, my phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Abby, it's not over. I want to meet her. My heart stops. James? Someone else? I stare at the screen. Emma asleep beside me, and the world tilts again, because now I'm not just running my race. Someone's chasing it. If you loved this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, drop a comment, and pass it along to your buddies. This is an artistic and fictional creation intended for both entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual people or events is purely coincidental. Some scenes and dialogues in the video are part of a dramatized performance and incorporate elements of grotesque, satire, and exaggeration. The creator stands against discrimination, violence, and hatred. This channel fully complies with YouTube's policies and does not infringe upon copyright laws.